I don't have a drink yet because Neil's bringing me a cocktail.
Oh my God, such luxury.
I know it is such luxury.
Because, you're lucky, Julie, because I've heard that you have to fight for your marriage. So I think he's fighting for it one cocktail at a time.
He's winning the war, y'all.
Is this a thing?
Sort of.
Aaron, sorry,
Yes,
who's Aaron?
definitely.
Who's
Yeah.
Aaron? Janine, I think you're gonna do a lot of oh shits, but they're gonna be very different. Because this is,
It's delicious,
without a
thank you.
doubt. What is it?
It's the one he made up for me last night. He's decided to name it The Moat in God's Eye.
What a name.
What's in it?
It's dry vermouth and ginger ale, and there's something else. There's another spirit in there I can't remember right now. And then it's all shaken up and strained, so it's like clear like a martini, so it looks like liquid poison. And then he drops one of those expensive Luxardo cherries in, and around the bottom of it, it looks like blood, so it looks like an eyeball in blood in the bottom.
Cool.
It's fucking awesome.
You're gonna have
And
to
it's
put a
delicious.
picture. Send me a picture so we can post it.
Okay, I'll do that
the
right
socials.
now.
Cool.
So
So Janine, almost said
Yeah.
it again. God damn it. Our Saturday night friend Zooms are ruining my Janine consistency for me.
I know.
Because all through those, I tried not to call you Janine, and then I find myself calling you by I don't know whose name when we're recording. This is without a doubt the most stylistically daring episode of Outlander ever.
very
no
true.
question. The only thing that comes close, and I mean this both as a compliment and a dig, and I think you will understand what I mean when I say it. The only episode that comes close is Faith, and it doesn't come that close.
Oh.
It's nowhere near that daring. But I mean that both as praise, because Faith is one of the best episodes of the show.
Oh, yeah.
And as a dig, because Faith is the episode with the slowly falling and shattering Virgin Mary in it. And both of those things apply here.
Oh, man. That's good, though. This will be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild one. I've still got half of a Pacifico, so we can go ahead and ruin that scale because I definitely didn't get up to get a drink, and I didn't even finish the drink I had in front of me.
Wow.
I was forced to get up at one point because at the continuing string of my problems with technology today, my Roku shat out on me, so I had to reset it.
Yeah, Janine, the reason we're starting late is poor old Julie. I had to, those of you who are in the Crowdcast will already know this, I had to walk her through tech support like she was my grandma on FaceTime. So at a certain
It's
point,
true,
I was
but
like,
let us also say that it wasn't a grandma problem. There was legitimately something wrong. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
There
like
was,
I didn't
yeah.
know how to press start or whatever.
but it was also pretty funny.
It was hilarious. And I did, for those people who watched the Saturday Night Live last night, I did look exactly like Kate McKinnon in that fucking Zoom sketch. It's true, and it's hilarious.
So that is why
Oh
we
my
started
God.
late, because we spent about 15 minutes trying to get that to work and eventually just gave up. And she watched a bit. There was a fervent outcry in the Crowdcast that I had to keep her on the phone at least through the end of the credits, like the scene after the credits.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then she popped back on again after the inside the episode stuff. So the cast was mostly just me talking to myself. But we got some good stuff. Anyway, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm like...
Welcome to Podlander Drunkcast and Outlander Podcast. Nope, that was a bad one. How are you really?
I'm doing okay. It's, it's Sunday's apparently laundry and cleaning day. That's what I'm realizing. So keeping that up. And I'm cooking a lot. We talked about this yesterday, but Allison suggested a book for me, a cookbook, and I've cooked sweet potato fritters, spinach frittata. I had sweet potato hash browns. I'm going to make... What am I going to make? I'm going to make sweet potato mash, sweet mashed potatoes, sweet potato mash, mashed sweet potatoes.
Yum.
Yep. Potatoes, mash, sweet.
Mash. That's
Welcome to Podlander Drunkcast and Outlander Podcast. I'm Allison.
I'm Julie.
That's Janine.
Hey.
And we are talking about episode 8 of season 5 of Outlander, Famous Last Words. An episode that is, I think, going to provoke some very strong reactions on both sides of the scale. And I think
Agreed.
probably like even internally, I would bet that there are quite a few of you who fervently hated some parts of it and absolutely loved others. And my perspective is a little bit different because, I'm always watching this stuff both as a critic and a fan. But certainly I think the good outweighs the bad, but the bad is like of the Bird Bunny variety.
Yes, it is.
It's like that's the fiery cross. It's like that. It's extremely mustachy, and I'm curious to know what you think of it. We will, like I said, be doing some additional in the book stuff later this week. And did I say that on the pod or before we start recording?
I think before we started recording.
Okay, we're gonna do on Crowdcast, and I'll make this open to everybody. It'll be posted on our Patreon page, but I won't lock it down. We'll do a Crowdcast for in the books chat because we were limited on time today, and there's a lot to be discussed. There's one, and I'm gonna go ahead and. Nope, we'll save it. There's one very big adaptation choice that works incredibly well, which I'm excited to talk about and get into, and is the big strength of the episode, I think, besides the fact that Richard Rankin is a fucking boss.
Yeah.
He could get an Emmy nomination out of this. He really
Really?
could.
Very, very,
Oh,
very
damn.
well. Yes.
Very well, and it's showy in the way. Well, let me take that back. The performance is not showy. The performance is really grounded and honest and restrained in a way the episode is not. But it's it's got a hurdle that is attractive to awards voters. Also, Janine, Roger's
Yeah.
not dead.
Thank
Roger was
God.
never going to be dead. I
Fucking Christ.
I wanted to find a way to sort of preserve the suspense for Julie. So
I'm
To
glad
be
he's-
honest, at the end of last episode, I could see that one of his hands was up by his neck, so I figured that he'd gotten his hand up
Yeah.
there somehow.
yeah, which was straight from the books. That's right from the books that he sort of claws, and I think his hand winds up all mangled too.
I think I was dreading this episode because I was worried he was dead.
Yeah, no, he's not dead.
Thank God.
He's alive.
Also, we called a couple of things. We successfully called that this week we would be filling in the blanks of what happened from when we see Roger get knocked out and when they find him hanging from the tree. In fact, over and over and over again, we saw what
Yes.
happened in between.
I wish I would have counted. It had to have been at least 20, right?
And
Jesus.
I think a lot of it worked, but the shorter ones definitely worked better. Like
For
when they were
sure.
just little flashes, it worked really well. And we'll get into what those looked like, Janine, in a minute. That's where your oh shit's going to come from. But also, we called that Darling Clementine would come back, and again, it came back like 27 times. Diminishing returns, sometimes
Yes.
very good. As it happens, Sophie Skelton has a beautiful singing voice. That was a nice discovery. There was one scene with Richard Rankin that I thought was great that involved the song. And then there's my second least favorite line in the history of Outlander, which involves
Yes.
the song.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So let's get into this, shall we? Julie, where do we start? We have an actual cold open.
Yes, this
week.
one was a real cold open, and it was Roger in the 60s at... Is he at Oxford or Harvard?
Oxford.
Oxford.
He's at Oxford teaching, I guess, history, right?
History. Yeah.
And he's really kind of browbeating his students in a way that
It's
was a little
weird.
bit uncomfortable. And
It's
I was
strange.
like, Roger, why are you such a fucking dick? Like, he was teasing them and
Oh,
prodding
Julie,
them. And
great
ugh.
minds. I said that out loud during the cast. I was like, come on, Roger, don't be a dick.
Yeah, I what did I write here? Roger's kind of a nightmare professor. Like asking
Yeah,
you the same question in different ways 3 different times, more passive aggressively every time to try and prove his point instead of just telling you why you were wrong or why your answer was not sufficient.
Also, at one point, he's like, well, then why don't you just leave?
And I was like, boss, peace, deuces, I'm out. Like,
Do you have any idea how expensive this school is? I'm not just leaving.
I don't want to stay for this abuse. Anyway, he's kind of being all cute about it, and then he sees Bree come in and sit in the back of the room, and he gets even cuter about it because now he's performing.
I mean, he is. I'll be clear. He is pretty cute. Like he looks good. He's rocking. He's rocking the turtleneck blazer combo that no one can rock except
He looks
for
pretty good. Yeah.
the few who can, and he looks great. And it's a good performance. And thematically, it's important because his history students are writing essays on the famous last words of various historical figures, apparently, or last words in general. So he is interested in, very clearly, in etymology and the importance of words in history, and the things he's saying are interesting. It's just the way he's going about them. He's being a real dick.
A little smarmy.
In his defense, I would also be furious if I asked my Oxford students to write a paper on famous last words, and one of them misquoted Julius Caesar, and the
Yes.
other used the phrase "bury the hatchet" and didn't know what it meant. I would also be mad.
Yeah, I would be a little pissed too, but maybe not quite as smarmy. But then
Maybe
there
not
was
such a dick about it.
there was a great opportunity for a bit here, you guys. So he asked the kids finally, what would your last words be? Think about, you may not get to say them to who you want to say them. He gets all professorial about it. So Allison, what would your last words be?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming you want a joke.
No, it can be whatever. Like mine ended up being a joke, but it's also actually really true.
Okay. I mean, I think they would probably be, Julie, why did you do it?
Perfect. And Aaron, I'm sorry, who is that? Janine, what do you think your last words might be?
Who am I?
Perfect. And then mine, and I wrote this with my pen without stopping, no pausing. I knew exactly what it would be. Van Hagar sucks. Okay, so we get to see Roger in the past and the future being all boss with his voice, right? So that's really important. And then, somebody says something about, when he tells the kids that they need to come back with structured arguments, I was like, that's the way Neil fights, and I don't like that.
Yeah, that's part of his browbeating, is they ask him what his last words would be, and he says, "Dear Lord, I pray that my students will write structured arguments, et cetera, et cetera." And somebody in the Crowdcast chat was like, "Har har, teacher jokes."
Perfect.
It was very funny. But then he says, more honestly, let my name be forgotten by history as long as my words and my deeds live on in the hearts of those I love, or something like that. It's very nice. And he looks at Bree and he smiles. And I will say it is a little bit confusing. I'm trying to figure out when on earth this would happen. There is, oh God, I don't know. I guess Brianna goes to visit him a couple of times after her mom leaves. It's hard to figure out when. For a while, I thought maybe it was a fantasy. It's hard, time-wise, it's hard to figure out.
Got it.
But she looks great. She's wearing some velvet pants. And then they have a nice little chat about words and love and blah-de-blah. And then they're going to a silent movie marathon.
That's very important, but please put a pin in that, Janine, because we can't just run you in there just yet.
Okay.
I have a question for everyone that
please.
listens to this show. When Bree said, "Would those really be your last words?" to him, I was irrationally angry. Can somebody tell me why I was so mad at that, why I hated it so much? I don't know, but I did. It was a visceral reaction. I was like, ugh!
I mean, I'll say this. No one has ever asked me that question before, because how on earth could you know what your last words were going to be when you don't know how, if, or when you're going to die?
Right. Yeah.
If you've planned your last words, it's a little bit like planning your Oscar speech, and then it comes out all inauthentic. Like the last thing you want is you're dying to be Anne Hathaway saying, "It came true." And I love Anne Hathaway.
Forgetting
Don't
your
get me wrong.
spouse.
Right? Like you don't want to over rehearse your famous last words.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Allison, if you would, because I think you're really the person who can do this better than I can about the themes and how they work. So
Okay.
There's the silent film thing. Janine, please listen to Allison. She's got it all.
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to sort of explain how it works in the episode with the exception of the last one, which we'll save for when it happens. Julie, do you think that makes sense?
That's perfect because that's the way
Okay.
they led us on.
Okay, so it's basically the conceit of the episode is that Roger is dealing with what they called shell shock or war neuroses, which is not PTSD. I actually just learned this recently from writing about a World War II documentary that's on PBS right now on Masterpiece called World on Fire, which is very good, by the way.
Is
pretty
that the one with
intense,
Helen
though.
Hunt?
Yes, and she's great in it.
Okay.
And a bunch of other really good people, including Sean Bean, who does not die.
What?
Hey,
I know.
that seems like a film.
At least in
season
season 1. There's going to be a season 2. So who knows? Maybe season 2. Anyway. So shell shock and PTSD are not the same thing, which they also use the term war neuroses. Basically, so Roger has survived. The episode jumps ahead 3 months in time after the first of these sequences I'm about to describe to you. And the conceit is that Roger is reliving the events leading up to and immediately following the hanging in the form of a silent movie.
Okay.
So the aspect ratio changes. We get that like uneven black frame that exists on a lot of silent films. We're getting scratches as if on celluloid, flickering noise, like the reel spinning.
Subtitles.
And we get dialogue cards that are interspersed, and not for
Wow.
all of them, right?
They really lean into this. Holy cow!
In this
The first one
sequence,
especially.
yeah.
yeah, the first one is the longest, and it's, I think, the least successful. The whole idea is like, and we'll get into this more later, but I think it is almost brilliant, but because of the way that it's handled and because they don't know when to ease off the gas, it's just entirely too much. And I think the biggest problem with that is this first sequence for 2 reasons. First of all, it denies us the opportunity of just focusing on what's happening and on Bree and Jamie and Claire's experience, because the rest of the episode is about Roger's experience, and I think most of those are at least okay, and some of them are very good. And the overall effect, I think, is really successful. But this first one, I mean, based on the reaction of people in the Slack, totally turned off a lot of people because it's so on the nose. So there, we get the like, we've got, oh no, Roger, and then I mean, the music's not like that, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like the train is coming, and oh no, we have to pull him off the tracks. Oh, he's still breathing. So we see them find Roger, as we saw at the end of the last episode. We see the shots from the last episode, this time in black and white. Jamie goes to pull him down and then says he's still breathing. Claire leaps into action being Claire and goes like full frontier
goes ham.
medicine Barbie and gives him a tracheotomy and puts some kind of tube in his neck to open his airway. And we see him open his eyes, and Brianna looks at him and says, "It's me, it's Brianna." And she looks terrified but also happy. And it's Sophie Skelton is very good in this episode. And it's a lot, right? The problem is it's just nowhere near as haunting and upsetting and visceral as it should be, because it's just really cute. And the bummer is that the title card is also silent filmy, right? It's like based on the books by Diana Gabaldon, developed for television by Ronald D. Moore. All of that stuff is in this format before the episode starts. And that works.
That was a mistake.
So
You like that?
I think it works. I think it works fine.
I kind of felt like it took a little bit of what could have been more successful about that first one away from it.
But can you imagine if they had taken those dialogue cards out?
Yeah.
And it was just, and we were just watching it happen silently?
Yeah.
Then I think it would have been fine. Like for me, it really is it's not title cards, sorry. It really is the dialogue cards.
Yeah, yeah. Because as you're describing all of that, because one of the first short films I made was a silent film in that fashion, and it becomes there's a lot happening. It's a very different way to watch a story unfold, and so it seems jarring, and it doesn't allow you to connect emotionally because you have to now deal with this new format.
I think that's kind of the point, though, from Roger's perspective, because
Okay.
he is unable to process these emotions, so he's watching it, right?
Yeah, it's like he's dissociating. And after this first one, mixed results, but like I said, mostly
Better.
good. The first one is just way too much. It's too long, and it doesn't really make sense because Roger wouldn't have seen what we're seeing, right? So it's not from his perspective. We're seeing the end of the last episode, basically, from the same perspective, but with this silent movie lens on it, basically. It's just it's a mess, and it's too cute, and it's a real shame because I think a lot of what follows would have worked a lot better in an episode that is incredibly ambitious, and even if you remove this aspect of it, which is really ambitious, and when it works, is really effective.
Yeah.
The very last one, which is different, I think is pretty effective. The one before it is the best. And they get progressively shorter and choppier, and the
That's
shorter
what
and
I liked.
choppier they are, the
I
better
liked it
they
when
are.
it was just the boots and the sound. That one was to me.
And the burlap, right?
And the rope, when he first touches that rope, just that memory of the rope too was very effective.
Yep.
But it was all the ones that I liked were very short, like they were shocks.
Yeah. Some of the shots that we see over and over again is we see a foot kicking a barrel out from oh, you know what, Janine, really quick, what actually happened? So we see Graham McTavish is in this episode again. We see him sort of explaining again in these dialogue cards what they're going to do. He says, here's another traitor for you, and Governor Tryon is there, and he says to his pompous number 2 guy, pick 3 to serve as an example. They pick Roger, who has a gag in his mouth and can't speak up. They also show Buck taking his little rosette and wearing it so that they think that he is in the militia, and he gets away. And then they hang them, and Roger's last. So we see one guy fall, we see another guy fall. Nobody shits their pants. Very disappointing.
Right.
Which happens in the books. It's all from Roger's POV. It's extremely upsetting. And he feels himself dying. Like he feels his bowels releasing, like he feels himself dying, and then essentially comes back to life because Claire saves his life. So the oxygen is cut off from his brain for quite a while, and it's like frankly a miracle that they're able to bring him back. Luckily, the best doctor in the entire world
It just happens to be there.
Which is very lucky. Anyway, so that is what happened. So we see all of that. We see the Roger's perspective on it, and then we jump forward 3 months in time. Oh, that's what I was saying. We see the barrel being kicked. We see from inside the burlap sack on his head from his perspective. We see his eyes inside the burlap sack, so we see like that pattern on them, and all of that stuff it's really beautifully shot. Like it's very, very well directed. It's just
too much. And if it weren't right at the top, maybe it would work, right? Like maybe if it was little flashes, little flashes, little flashes, even if it was reversed, even if it was like short and they get longer.
Yeah.
Right? Like
some sort of build, something to get you there.
Yeah, because we get another long one. The very last one is another long one. So, like, even if they had just chopped off most of this first one and it had just been little shots and then we had sort of gradually built to the whole picture, I think that would have worked better too. Instead, it's just like this one is so cutesy that it's distressing because the scene itself is so horrific. So then we jump forward 3 months in time on Richard Rankin's haunted fucking face.
Yeah, man.
And I know we've already said this, but Jesus Christ, he's so good in this episode. It might be, it's like right up there with the very best Tobias Menzies moments in the show. I mean, granted, we're coming right off of it, but might be the single best 1 hour performance by anybody in the cast so far.
Wow.
Might
Did
be.
very well. There was
Wow.
one moment where when he would try to talk or whatever, you could feel that he had the impulse to speak to Bree and then stopped, and that happened once again, maybe 2 times too many. Where he did this thing where he just went, psych. And I was like, okay, that one that one was a little much. But I just think he had to do that exact thing maybe 2 times too many. But overall, he was so fucking good.
So fucking good.
Very
And
quiet, all in his eyes. You could feel it in his body, too, because he did a lot of physical labor to try to work out his demons. And so he's got this whole physical thing going on, too. It was good.
It's like the thing that Julie's talking about, where every time he would try to speak, the thing that's so impressive about it is that you can tell that Richard Rankin, the actor, knew exactly what Roger was going to say and started to say it and then stopped. He's not playing like, oh, I'm going to say something, then I'm stopped. It's a thought in process, and then he still has the thought, and the thought gets truncated by his unwillingness to use this ravaged voice, right? Because he was fucking hanging from his neck for who knows how long. Even if it's 1 or 2 times too many, it's incredibly well done. A lot of actors would have just played like, no, right? And instead, you can tell, like Julie said, you can see the impulse to speak, and you can tell he knows exactly what he was going to say, and then he just doesn't. It's really good. He also just moves differently. Like, all of it's different. It's a really, really, really good, subtle, mostly wordless performance.
Yeah.
Just like, and that's what I mean by the kind of thing that awards giving bodies really love, because it's very, very impressive.
There was a visual moment that I thought was cute. I don't know, cute is not the right word, but maybe it was a bit over the top, where we see him for the first time from behind. And have we ever seen that he wears a lace-up vest too? Because it immediately linked him in my mind to Jamie.
Yeah, and to Cornish Game Hen, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So I saw that and I was like, oh, I think that was probably on purpose. And it was a shame that I felt like that was probably on purpose, but it was still cool. I was like, all right, okay. Yeah.
Oh, see, I liked it. I think there's a costume this episode that we will talk about.
Oh, for sure. But, I did like it, but I felt like it was, or maybe my mood today is all fucked up. As everybody knows, that I had the fucking problems trying to log in. But I could never really connect. I couldn't connect until the very end. So I think maybe I saw it and I was like, oh, they really put that out there for you, didn't they? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
There's too much. I mean, there's a lot of hand holding.
Exactly.
Which is too bad, because God, the stuff that's good is really fucking good. Anyway, okay, so we're 3 months in the future, and we're literally like 4 minutes into the episode. And we've got half an hour left. But we have covered, those flashbacks happen a lot, right? So basically anytime there's a scene with Roger, and sometimes it'll be because, like Julie said, he feels a piece of rope and the texture comes back, or there'll be a noise or a look on somebody's face, or he'll overhear something, or there's a lot with his hands, because the reason he survived is he stuck his hand up inside the noose, right?
Yeah.
So he flashes back a lot, and they get progressively better. But like I said, the first one it's a lot.
It's important to know, obviously, that he lived and how he lived and what it was like. But it's also very important to know that Tryon himself was the person that gave the order to hang him. And that appears in one of those flashbacks. So you get to see Governor Tryon actually just be like, no, kill these dudes. So he actually is just murdering his subjects.
Wow.
Okay, so you see, that's important, because then Tryon tries to buy him off with 5,000 acres of land, which actually kind of works. We do have the discussion between Bree and Claire about war neurosis, which I thought was good, because Claire has that shit, right?
Yeah.
But she's just so stone-faced about it. She's just so, and maybe it's because in her capacity as a nurse, she had to see so much of people dealing with it that she just kind of shut that part down. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then when Claire said, you'll have to have faith that you'll find him, first of all, faith. Secondly, I was like, okay, Claire.
Yeah. There are some clinkers in the dialogue. And the weird thing is, it felt a little bit like...
On purpose.
At
the end of every scene, it felt like it was like, blop.
Yeah,
truism,
like it was...
Truism.
Like just buttons everywhere?
Inserted. I'm just going to be direct, and this is incredibly... I have zero proof of this. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But what it felt like is somebody wrote an episode, and then someone, I don't know who, said, okay, but we got to make sure that our viewers really get it, and just inserted one extra thing at the end of every scene.
Yes.
And it's always at the end. It's like there'll be a really good scene, and then there's one more thing. And the one more thing is always the thing that kind of drags it down. And I still think that ultimately this is a mostly successful episode, and the ways in which it fails are, for the most part, interesting. It's just these little inserts that are they're frustrating.
So what happened?
And it's still, let's keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see Jocasta singing at Murtaugh's grave. She's got a beautiful voice. She's obviously very sad. Jamie made a gravesite for Pamplemousse on his land. So
It's
this
a
is where people
cairn.
can come to, stack of rocks, I think Gaelic, right? And she sings, and then she has a scene with Jamie on the porch of the big house where they're talking about how they both miss him and how they're, how they're dealing with their grief. And I really love the moment at the very end where she gives him a hug and she says, I wish we could know which goodbyes were our last, which actually happens to be one of those clunker lines that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
But the reaction to it is so fucking perfect. Because she said that, and I inside went, oof, like, oh, God. And then Jamie did a physical oof by falling down on the ground of the porch. He just sat down like it had hit him so hard. He was like, oof, right after I physically went oof.
Oh.
Well,
and that made me laugh.
Maria Doyle Kennedy is just so good.
She was very good in that scene. It was
Very
very
good.
short, but she was very good.
Yeah.
And then
So she's so Murtaugh has this care. I would bet we're going to spend a lot of time. How long? What's the over under on how long it takes for Jamie to deliver a monologue to that cairn? 3
next
episodes?
episode. Next episode.
2
Very
episodes.
next one?
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I'm going to go very
2.
next. I'm going very next. You say 2, Janine?
I'm gonna say 2.
Okay.
And I'll say
what do you
3.
say? You say 3?
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I say next. I say episode 9. Janine says episode 10. Allison says episode 11. You heard it here first, folks.
Let us know, Daphne. Let us know.
Let us know, Daphne. Let us know which one we need to watch.
So it's a very good scene between the two of them, and that's it for Murtaugh.
Yeah, peace. Bye.
Fuck. Well, because now we got to go down the Richard show.
Oh, yes. But
Yeah,
we do
and
get... We get a few more minutes of Jamie trying to process his grief about Murtaugh. So that's nice for Sam because he gets this moment of where he's also... It's like the hill of broken men right now is what Fraser's Ridge is.
Oh, well, and just all this, I mean, it's hit me a little, I'm not even watching these things, and just the fact that we're talking about grief so much and that they're dealing with that, and then I can't help but think about the grief that everyone's going through, and I'm just like...
Right.
I'm sitting here getting low.
I think that's why I got the oof after she said, I wish we knew when we were saying our last goodbye, which is rough.
Yeah.
Damn.
All right.
You know, Janine, it might be worth watching, especially because you want to see the birthday fuck, watching
Birthday fuck, yeah.
these 2 episodes because they really are sort of a 2-parter.
7 and 8.
They seem really
7
well
and 8.
paired.
And
and
this
like,
one is very interesting, and the other
Yeah.
one is very good. And this one has things that are very good, as we'll get to in a moment. I
Yeah.
think the easiest way, in the interest of moving things along, and
Yeah.
also because it is intentionally repetitive, again, in a way that's sometimes good and sometimes not, is to just say, like, Roger is not together.
Yeah.
And Brianna is very concerned. So, some highlights. Roger does some woodworking. At last, we see someone doing some woodworking.
Then Lord John Grey shows up in a scene, loving him. He's the one to come to tell them that Tryon wants to buy them off with his property.
Yeah.
And then he has this nice little scene with Brianna where he gives her an astrolabe. That's important later.
It is
what's an
important.
asteroid lady?
Also,
Oh, it's like a compass and a clock and a sundial all in one. It's really pretty. It's
Well,
like
that's
this big
fucking
brass
fancy.
one. Yeah, it's cool.
it's very cool. That's straight from the books.
I
only
do have
he doesn't bring it in
one-
person.
One very specific note here that I have to share. That
Please.
little interstitial scene where Jamie comes in and it's Claire at night and they're talking about time heals all wounds and it's just the two of them. It's very short. There is this bowl of Granny Smith apples that has like an ethereal light from heaven aimed directly on it. And they are glowing like neon green and I was obsessed with them.
Me too.
Thank
Me
you.
too.
I
They're
actually
so
wrote
pretty.
in all capital letters, that bowl of Granny Smith's though.
The cinematographer had that one thing. He was like, "This is the one thing." that I
Somebody
think
got it, and I
fucking
hope
looks
somebody
beautiful."
hears us say, "Thank God for that bowl of apples," because it really brightened my day.
It also distracted from the fucking
scene.
opulence. Like opulence.
You're
They
right.
own everything. Because oh my God. It's like it's so much. They have
Trying
so
to
much
distract
stuff.
from the fact that they got too much shit in that house.
God, it's this actually becomes important later. I'm gonna save that observation. Remind me, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, when we get to a certain entrance that is coming up.
Got it.
Okay.
So you can also tell that Roger's having a rough time because Claire says, "Would you like to come see Lord John?" And he shakes his head no. And you're like, who doesn't want to see that face?
Damn right.
Everyone wants to see that face.
Everyone.
So we see him woodworking and crying, very upsetting, while Brianna is singing to Jemmy. She's singing "Oh My Darling Clementine."
There's
We
one
see-
weird thing I have here. They were doing laundry for some reason. Washing those poop shirts by hand in a creek. I just had to say it. Okay. And then
They make candles. We see a lot of homesteading, which is very
We do.
nice. And then at one point, the grandparents come over for tea. They come with leftovers, and Roger is woodworking. Oh, he's making stairs to the loft, and you see it's a little funny. You see Jamie kind of roll his eyes when Brianna mentions the loft. I was like, "Good job, Sam. Thank you for remembering that you thought the loft was a dumb idea 5 episodes ago."
Right.
It's like a nice little moment. But while they're having this tea, Jemmy, who by the way is now 27 years old.
oh yeah, why is he so big?
Well, there was a jump in time and kids grow fast, but it's distracting.
Woof. It
Both
was distracting.
Jermaine and Jemmy and Adso the cat all got much bigger.
Yes.
Like they're all applying for driver's permits. That's how old they are. So Jemmy is like wandering around on his feet. Remember when we saw him crawling as a tiny baby like 6 minutes ago? He's walking around like "Good day, mother. How are you?" Right?
Can I have a biscuit?
"Might I please enjoy a small sweetbread?" Like whatever the fuck. He's very adult. Anyway, he's wandering around and a tea kettle is on because they're about to have tea. This is an adaptation of a very important scene from the books in which it's a campfire and not a tea kettle. Anyway, he sees the tea kettle, which is making this chirpy, chirpy noise. So he goes walking for it. And Roger, who has, again, refused to speak, presumably because it hurts, but also because his voice is basically gone and his throat is a nightmare, right? Like his fucking larynx is a hellscape.
Yeah.
Sees him going for it and yells no or stop, something like that.
No.
In like a horror monster voice. And I want to know like which voice coach Richard Rankin worked with, like how, because the vocal work he does in this episode is fucking top tier for all like 7 lines that he has, right? But this is the first time he makes any sound. It's like a croak that mixed with a scream to get Jemmy to stop, and Jemmy hears it and starts bawling because it's scary.
Yeah.
And would be scary even without that voice. And so grandparents are like, "Oh, holy shit," right? And Claire just picks him up and they just leave. They don't say anything. They're like, "Bye!" And they take the baby out.
Let's get the baby
so
out of
that
here.
Brianna and Roger can have this conversation, and Brianna looks so joyful and hopeful and is like, "Say something else. You talked, you spoke. Please
can't.
say something else. Use your voice." And he almost does, and he just can't. It's very good. So all of this is happening again and again and again. Roger is very much struggling, right?
Oh my God.
So
Brianna gets faster
Jamie,
laden.
yeah, Jamie and Claire are outside with the baby playing hide and go seek when all of a sudden Jamie hears a snuffling in the forest and out
Hold
comes
on.
a wild boar.
But before we
Darcy?
hear the snuffling in the forest, we hear a little pa pa, which is the sound of everyone's ovaries exploding.
That is true.
Because Jamie Fraser playing hide and seek badly with a tiny
Terribly
child,
badly.
where he's like, "Oh, I'm going to hide behind this tree,"
And
then
it's
he's
like a stick in the ground.
and he's a giant. So it's just like you just see these ripped shoulders coming from behind this tiny tree.
It was
It's
pretty
very
cute.
And then all of a sudden you hear a snuffling, and in the crowdcast I went, "Bear suit, bear suit."
Me too.
But
And
it's
then,
not.
no.
It's a boar in
Instead,
a boar
it's a
suit.
razorback. Boar comes out. Jamie gets his knife ready to kill it. And then all of a
Pig
sudden,
suey.
an arrow comes
Is that
out of
right?
nowhere. Shoot,
Did I
is
do it right?
Oh,
That is
shit.
right.
Okay.
and the arrow kills it and it falls over, and Jamie looks up and we see a Native American on the ridge, like right above.
An
That's
imposing
backlit.
silhouette.
An imposing silhouette.
Ooh.
And the person approaches, and we realize, Janine, who is it?
Is it the badass lady? Is it the badass?
No.
No, who is it? I don't know who it is.
It's Wien, dude.
Fucking Wien? Oh,
Yeah.
fucking Wien.
Wien.
Oh, fuck,
Remember,
shit.
Wien gave himself to the Mohawk so that Roger could live? So fucking Wien's been living with the Mohawk upstate for a while.
And he came jaunting down just to kill a Razorback
You'll
for
see
Jamie.
why later, but yeah,
Fuck
he's
yeah,
back. And he
Wien.
managed to save Jamie, Claire, and Jimmy's life in one arrow.
Fuck yeah, Wien. Oh,
And
that's exciting.
Before we go forward with Ian's story, Ian, or what are you going to name him, Allison?
We've got options. So I want to workshop this. We could go with Galian. Because first
Because
of all,
he's a grown-ass man now.
Okay.
he is an adult. He is no longer we. And he is also, I mean, he's looking really good.
Yeah.
John Bell, you look great, man. You look really good. Those cheekbones are killing it. You look real good. So we could go Galian. We could go Wow-Ian.
And
We could
mine
go,
was
"Hoo-wee."
Ian.
Oh, I like Huyen. Huyen's over here.
God, of course you do.
Ian.
Hoo-wee.
Well, that's also the closest to Pig Suey, too. So.
Yeah, and that's his origin story now.
And then we have a suggestion from the Crowdcast people. I think maybe this was Amanda suggested Daddy 2.0. Which I think is I think we'll go with Hoo-Ian. So we see and then we'll just call him Hoo-Ian. So Hoo-Ian
Huyen.
is wearing the most
It's so beautiful.
incredible costume. Like
Remember
best
last
costume in a
season?
while.
Jamie, Jamie. Fucking Aaron / Janine. I just called you Jamie.
You can call me Jamie. That's fine.
I bet you like that.
Super great.
So remember last season when we got all the amazing Native American costumes, and it was
Yeah.
Terry Dresbach's last season, and we were like, oh God, well here it comes again, and it was so good.
Awesome.
Like I could look at this costume probably for 2 hours and find something new every time he turned around.
Fuck
Yeah, it was. I mean, the obvious conceit was it was very clearly a combination of the clothes that he was wearing when he left, right? Like a very Western, and by Western I mean European coat, right? Like a tweedish looking thing. Pants. He's wearing boots where you can see that the toes are basically broken open, but they're leather boots. And then on top of it, so like there are pieces from his old life, but very few. And then it's just like wooden buttons, and he's got like his dirk, but it's in this pouch around his neck, and like beads and feathers, and
He's got a
like
mohawk.
yeah,
Fuck yeah.
with and tattoos on his face, and like a really cool silver cuff that's over his coat. Later, we see a bracelet that he keeps trying to hide, that's made out of what looks like maybe porcupine quills. It's just beautiful. It's the most beautiful costume. But he is not like, hey, what's up? I look great, don't I? He looks fucking haunted. Like
He's going
haunted.
through it, man. We got another broken man on the ridge.
Shit. Oh man. Oh fuck, man.
And-
just
yeah,
get-
The Ridge
clean.
needs to
Oh, shit.
recruit, like, now that they have 2 Beardsleys hunting, they can turn their attention to their most pressing need, finding a qualified therapist
To come out here and deal
to
with some
come work on
masculine
the ridge.
issues.
Yeah.
to come work on the Ridge. Because
So-
Bree could use one too, not just masculine issues. Bree
That's
needs
true.
one.
True.
It
Yeah.
sounds
Jamie
like
needs one.
Marsley could really, and Marsley's doing great, but she could use a therapist. She's got some
right.
stuff she needs to talk out about having 97 children.
Claire could work. Need one. Could work.
Oh,
use one,
Claire
too.
could-
Claire's
definitely
really
use a
just
therapist.
stuffed that shit so deep far down inside of her that it's very difficult for her to release it.
Wherever her bum pack is, that's where it's at.
This week, I'd like to
emotions.
use my time to discuss a troubling pattern I've noticed with my husband. For some reason, every time we get into an argument, I feel the need to hit him, and then we fuck. I don't know what it is. It's
There might
almost
be
as though
something there. Something.
I feel as though there's something missing. Like perhaps in the novel version of our lives, there's more build up to these moments, but instead it just comes across like I get really turned on by hitting him across the face. Could we unpack that? That's what Claire needs it for. That's what Claire needs it for.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
You know who else needs a therapist? Fucking Matthew B. Roberts. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, Patty, so they bring Whean up to the house, and he looks at the big house, and I said, who Whean speaks for all of us when he says, it's big.
He looks, and I think some of this might be a little bit colored by what's going on in the world right now. Because he certainly looks shocked. And God, sorry to get intense for a second, but it reminded me I won't be too specific. Somebody I dated for quite a while, a zillion years ago, was a veteran, and at the time was a reservist who was called up to active duty because of the war in Iraq, and did several tours of duty. And when he came back the first time, had a total breakdown the first time he went in a grocery store. Because of all of the excess and the bright light, and there was just so much of everything, and it was so plentiful, and there were so many people, and it was so loud and bright, and he couldn't handle it. And it reminded me of that. I mean, he looked just like that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's completely, you can tell it's completely foreign to him. But in this moment, it also looked like he was kind of disgusted by it.
Yes.
Like he was like, because you know what? It looks like Claire and Jamie have been hoarding toilet paper.
Exactly.
Like that is what it's like. Like they're so, and at one point he's like, Claire's like, luckily we had the help of the settlers. I'm like, yeah, and why do you think we don't see a single other house? Like, where is their food? Where are the crops? Where is everybody living? Because you had to have their fucking arched windows and shiny red shutters. At one point in the
How old is that kid?
Crowdcast, I was like, why do they have siding? It's like they have siding. Like they have 6 different porches. They have there's a porch. Even Brianna and Roger's cabin is now like hanging plants and a porch swing. And I'm like, where the fuck? Like you're in the wilderness. Shouldn't you be spending 6 days trying to get a single rock out of the field? like what the fuck? Where is this place? It's too much. It's too much. There's shit everywhere.
And Huian's just like, fuck this.
And he goes, it's big. And at one point, Claire tells him, "You can have our guest quarters isn't finished yet." I'm not paraphrasing. Our guest quarters isn't finished yet, but you can have the bed in the kitchen. And I was like, "Oh, so he'll have a pallet by a fire?" No, it is a double bed, a full fucking double bed with like a quilt and everything in this like beautiful green paneled section of their palatial fucking kitchen. It's bizarre.
It's way past a nook.
Yeah.
It's way past a nook. And he takes one look at it and is like, nope. And then Jamie finds him sleeping on the porch. Mm-hmm. So to move, because also, again, it's a lot of repetition. And in this case, 0 complaints. And John Bell is also this is Richard Rankin's episode, but John Bell is also very, very good in it.
Yeah.
You can just see they have a dinner and Fergus and Marsley are real and all cute and fun and want to ask him about his adventures. And he says,
like, no.
They say, don't leave anything out. And he says, well, the beginning of the story, and the end of the story we're eating because they're eating the fucking wild boar. He also said at one point, Claire's like, Marsley could slaughter the boar. And he's like, no, I killed it. I should do it. No affect, right? Jamie hugs him and he doesn't really hug back. He is not doing well. And then Jamie finds him sleeping in one of the like 6 porches. And again, I'm not exaggerating. This porch seems to be separating 2 separate portions of the house.
It's true, and I know what that's called.
Okay, hit me.
That is called a dog trot.
Wow.
It was in
Dog
order
trot.
for airflow to be in larger houses like that, older houses. It was so air could flow through more efficiently.
Wow. Dog trot. I learned something new. So he's sleeping in the dog trot, and Jamie tries to talk to him, and Ian says, like, I didn't have the words, right? And Jamie says, well, then do you mind if I just sit here for a minute? And he says, no, I didn't mind. And God, John Bell is really fucking good. So they just kind of sit quietly, and it's very obvious that who Ian is going through it.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, and that happens again and again, you just keep seeing evidence that Ian is doing very poorly. And the best indication of this, and we're jumping around in time a lot because this episode is just really weird, is when he first shows up at the Ridge with Claire and Jamie and Jem. Bree comes out and is so excited to see him and looks really happy. And then Roger comes out and they have
The best hug.
wordless exchange that is like, it's
It's
there are a
good.
million things in it. The first phase is the two of them sort of sizing each other up because Ian is, partially, largely even responsible for what happened to Roger last season, right?
Yeah.
Like Ian is the one who first alerted Jamie to the crazy man that Lizzie was like, oh God, the monster that raped Brianna is here. And he went running to Jamie and then was a part of that whole thing. So that's part of it. Then there's the fact that Ian traded his life for Roger's, right? So
Yeah.
that Roger could leave. And then, so that's like the first half, and they just kind of stare at each other. And then it's like they immediately recognize that they're both in the shit.
Yes.
Julie, am I describing it right?
No, it's perfect because there's a moment where you can't tell whether or not they're going to grab each other and like fight. But then it's not that. It's like there's this really aggressive first second and then it fades right away because they both can see the brokenness inside the other person.
And then they hug, and it's like,
It's the best hug.
it's fucking incredible.
Did I write that down? I was like, oh, they hug each other, and why am I sobbing? Yes, Ian and Roger, big hug, and I'm sobbing.
Yeah, incredible. So basically, this first half of Roger's, all of his flashbacks and Ian's obvious torment, hits a middle point where Jamie maneuvers things so that Roger and Ian together, with some sort of instinct that he knows they just need to be away from everything, sends them out with the astrolabe to mark off Roger's, hey, I'm sorry, I hanged you land.
Yeah.
Right? His 5,000 acres of like, sorry about your perilous experience that's going to traumatize you for the rest of your life. Have some trees.
Trying's
some
always
good trees.
trying it. He's always
There's
trying.
Always trying
some good tree
something.
porn. So they set off together into the woods to measure the land. And we basically don't see anybody on the ridge after that. We forgot about the tarot cards. We'll talk about all of this shit more later because we're running short on time and I want to get to the good stuff. But Marsley reads Roger's tarot and he gets the hangman twice. And it's,
Twice.
Oh, fuck.
Because again, the once. All we needed was the once.
Yeah, twice was a little like
But it's
when
twice.
she dealt him again and he was about to turn it over. I was like, please, dear God, no. And then it was. And I was like, come
I
on.
said out loud, oh God, we're going to get the hanged man again.
Yeah.
It's a perfect illustration.
Come on. One would have been enough.
Perfect illustration of exactly the point that we were talking about earlier. One
Yeah.
is enough. Two is too many. But Lauren Lyle is so fucking good in that scene. She's great. She has two, maybe three really good scenes. So they head off and like maybe the last scene, or I guess there are two little scenes we see at the ridge. One is Marsley realizes, or Claire realizes that Hemlock is missing from her surgery.
Ooh.
I have a note here. It says Fraser's Ridge. Hemlock is missing. Dun, dun, dun.
Totally. And Marsley's like, I wouldn't touch it. By the way, Marsley is insanely pregnant.
Again.
Gosh.
Yeah, insanely pregnant. And
Fergus.
then Claire asks Jamie if she thinks Roger would harm himself, and specifically says, back in the day, you didn't want to go on anymore. Do you think that is what is going on with Roger? And Jamie just looks really worried, and that's about all we get. It's a good little scene, but that's
Yeah.
about all we get. So the episode is definitely setting up that Roger took this hemlock.
There is one moment that I need to bring up, and it was another,
Please
it's like
do.
a green apple moment.
Okay.
When they cut back to Roger and Hui-Ian by the fire, and it's Roger, he fell asleep, he had the dream again, he wakes up, and Hui-Ian is playing with the astrolabe, and he goes, were you dreaming? Wherever you thought you were, we're both still here. And he's like staring at Roger while he says it, but he's got the astrolabe in front of his face, and then he serves the sickest profile. He just goes, towards the astrolabe, and it was drag-worthy, I thought, gag-worthy.
Yeah, gag-worthy. So they just have like a very sad bromance where Ian just kind of talks and is very not fussy, right? Like he's not coddling Roger at all, but certainly is focused on what is going on with him. And Roger, of course, doesn't speak, but there's a lot of nonverbal communication. And they just trek through the woods and camp and like communicate mostly silently, and it's really wonderful. And by wonderful I mean horrible, but like really well done, and it's beautiful. Like the sun coming through the trees.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
it's just, I mean, it makes the woods look like the haven that it must feel to both of them at the moment.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's obviously sort of healing.
Yeah.
And then they end up at this cliff. And there's this gorgeous shot. Roger is just staring down the cliff, and he has another one of his flashbacks. And this time, this is the important one. It starts to change. And it's first, it shows Tryon, and you hear him say something. And then we get more scratches on the celluloid, and then it fades into color, but we're still seeing it as through the burlap sack. Mm-hmm. And then we get the memory in more detail. So all of the things we've seen many times happen in sequence, but quickly. And there's this one really incredible shot where we see his eyes go bloodshot. And by bloodshot, I mean like not red, like pools of blood explode in his eyes. Oh, wow. And it's fucking incredible. Incredible.
Yeah, it was very intense.
And it's just Richard Rankin's eye. You're just seeing his eyes, and it's really, really good. And I can't. It makes me so frustrated to think, because it's really effective, how much more effective it would have been if we hadn't been fucking coddled at the beginning, right? Like if we had just seen all of these bits and pieces and then they had come together. But he's standing on this cliff staring down, very obviously thinking about throwing himself over the edge. Ooh. And then we see this shit happen to his eyes, and we see his feet kicking, and we see his fingers scrabbling on the rope. It's amazing. And then he gets this flash, like obviously about to die flash, that's just Brianna smiling at him from like across the kitchen table or something. And we see Ian watching him staring down this cliff while he's having this flashback, and it's very intense. Julie, did that one work for you?
Yes, I liked that one. I thought that one was the most important one, and that maybe if the very first one that had been stretched out so long was about half the length, and they only had maybe 4 other flashes between instead of literally like 20, it would have been way more effective. This one was the one that needed to be there.
Yeah.
I don't think they needed to have it happen as many times for the interstitial ones, and the first one didn't need to be as long. But this one was cool. And the makeup, whatever they fucking did to his eyeballs, was incredible.
Fucking A, man.
But we see that his last thing was Bree, and so he decides to live, right? He's like, yeah, okay, I got something to live for. So he goes back to the campsite, and there's Whean cooking up some hemlock.
Oh, we're skipping ahead. So we're skipping ahead a little bit, because before we see Whean cooking the hemlock, Roger goes to sleep, and he wakes up, and Rollo's back. I can't believe we skipped this. The very good dog is
Rollo.
back.
Yeah.
Rollo's back.
Well, there's
so
a lot
he
going
sees
on
that
here.
Rollo is whining, and he's tied up. Right? So Roger is like, what the fuck? So he goes looking for Whean. But we find Whean first, because we are better at searching than Roger is. And he's burying his hatchet, which I think that like this really shouldn't work. It should be entirely too much. But John Bell is so good that I honestly think it does. So he's burying his hatchet. And then he's got a little campfire going, and then he takes the fucking hemlock out of his pocket. And he puts it in a little pan, and he starts cooking it, and his face is just a wasteland, and it is so upsetting. And then Roger comes flying in and just drop kicks the pan of hemlock. And John Bell looks at him just like devastated and angry and horrified, and leaps on him. And then they have this very intense conversation face to face in the dirt, where Ian is like, why would you do that? I watched you think about dying. Why would you stop me from dying? Neither of us wants to be here anymore. And that is when Roger starts to speak, and it is so fucking good.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I did have a moment when Whean attacked him, jumped on him, where I was like, is this a William Blake situation where we're just getting a lot of dudes out in the woods to fight each other until they feel feelings? But they really did go for it.
Man.
Yeah.
And now I mean, this scene is worth more discussion. I don't have much time left, but it
Yeah.
was so good. And now we know that Roger can speak again. He remembers why. He wants to fight for their marriage. We find out that Huiyin had a woman. It's never really stated whether or not she was his wife, and I don't know if that was part of the custom of the Mohawk or not. But it was definitely somebody he loved. And she is no longer part of him or with him. She's not dead, but lost to him somehow is what he says. And I think the bracelet probably has something to do with that, right, Allison?
Yeah, we'll learn more about that in the future, I'm sure. Ian's backstory it's a whole thing. And I will say in the books, it takes him quite a while to confide. There are some other little things worth mentioning, but he also mentions in a couple of conversations, mostly both with Roger and with Marsley earlier. You know what? Never mind. I'm going to sit on that. Keep going.
Okay. But as I said, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm trying to rush through it a little bit. Roger comes, they both come back to the ridge. They come riding over the ridge. Roger shows up at home. Bree's happy to see him. She turns and looks at him, and he just starts talking to her, and she's so happy, right, that he's talking again. And then he has a whisper monologue. That's all I wrote.
Yeah.
But it's about him saying how he's never going to be the same. But she was the last thing he saw, and
everyone wants the old Roger Mackenzie back, but he died. In that
part of me died out there.
I did that tarot card reading, and that's what I am now. I'm the Hanged Man, and God, it's another thing that like probably shouldn't work, but Richard Rankin is so good that it really did. Like it really worked for me. Where I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. But it's also about acceptance. It's fucking great.
He did a great job in the scene. And then what do they do but fucking miff it right away by underscoring their touching hug and kiss with the Clementine in the scoring.
Oh, God, we skipped the worst line, too. In one of the
was it?
conversations where Bree is laying down the law, we skipped all kinds of shit that was too much. Bree made him a paper airplane. That's too much.
Yeah. God, I forgot about that.
But in an earlier, that's like that, hey, I love you, I made you a present, it's a paper airplane, and it soars, but it shouldn't be able to fly, and it does, and paper anniversary, blah, 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 too much. But even though Sophie is really good in it. But also they have another tough love conversation where she says, are you lost and gone forever? And I wanted to die.
Oh, yeah. You did mention that at the beginning, but we forgot to mention that.
Oh,
God.
Yes.
It's bad.
That.
Yes, Janine, it happened.
Somebody in the crowdcast mentioned that it was like that a lot of this excess in the episode was like the Lord John Grey, so was I. That line,
Yes. Over and over
it's
and
like
over
that.
again.
It's that factor. And the problem is, and I will talk about this more in the little in the books thing that we're going to do, but the problem is that when you put all of it, right? Like when you put too much on, when you put all of it out there, you don't actually leave any room for the audience, right? You're like, there's the old acting expression, feel 10 or feel 7, show 10, or no, I'm sorry, feel 10, show 7. There we go.
Yeah.
And the show never does that. The show feels 10 and shows 12, and then there's no room for us. So in moments like that, we didn't need it. We didn't need the "Are you lost and gone forever?" We didn't need the Clementine underscoring their conversation.
I almost turned the television off when the underscoring started. I was like, "What the fuck?
Too much. It's way too much." And the actors are so good that it feels like a little bit insulting to them and us, right?
Yes.
Like, first of all, you have to trust that people can just react to art however they see fit. You cannot handhold them. If you do, you're cheapening the experience by taking away from them the ability to sort of feel things on their own instead of just manipulating them into feeling exactly what you think they should be feeling. Let them get there themselves. That's why that's the whole point, is to experience it and to make that empathetic connection. Like films and television and fiction in general, like novels also, it's all about empathy. It's all about your emotional life connecting to the emotional life of the story. And the Outlander too often removes our ability to do that. Like, I'm already doing it, and then it goes farther. And so then it's like,
and
I'm
it
not
always
necessary.
makes me cringe. It always makes me cringe when they do it.
And in an episode like this one, like miraculously, the last episode did very little of that. This one, it's too bad, because even with the too much at the top. Like, even if the silent film thing didn't work for you, right? Which some of it I think works really well, some is just okay, and that first bit is a real mess. Even if it didn't work for you, then it's an interesting artistic, I don't know about
choice.
failure, but like
Choice.
whether you like it or not, choice, yes, right?
Yeah.
It is very interesting. It's a big swing stylistically, which is never a bad thing, even if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It means there's still blood pumping through the show. That's very good and important. But when things like that happen, like Are You Lost and Gone Forever, it's just a little bit
God,
insulting.
it makes me want to like throw up. Actually, I didn't
doesn't.
watch
We
it.
don't
I'm
need
just
it.
like, fuck that.
And then guess what? After their beautiful scene, after he's spoken to her again, and we realize that they're going to move forward with their lives, whatever, first of all, we have that terrible underscoring, which I already mentioned. And then there's the blackout and the credits start rolling, and it's no music, silence, and then fucking Richard Rankin starts singing Darling Clementine, and then Sophie Skelton joins him. So while he didn't sing the actual theme song to the show, which Allison predicted, he did fucking sing us out.
Yeah, and I honestly would not have minded that if they hadn't done the underscoring.
Yeah, if the
There's
underscoring
also-
wasn't
one
there,
or the
I would have
other.
been okay with that too.
Yeah.
Like that.
One or
That's
the other.
Another
nice.
scene,
Yeah.
and there's another scene that we skipped where we see Roger playing on his guitar, and he's playing "Oh My Darling Clementine," which he had just heard Bree singing to Jemmy, and he's like whisper singing it, but like nowhere near as strong a whisper as we get at the end because he's just not using his voice, so it's like it doesn't exist anymore, and it's very, very, very good. But again, if they had just removed one or two of those things, the rest
Remove
of them
the
would have been
underscoring.
certainly the underscoring and the line. The line has got to go.
The line
Yes.
is just like
Yes,
Jesus.
the line
If
and
they
the
had removed
underscoring.
those
If those
things-
two things had gone, I would not have been so disgusted
just-
by it coming back under the
It's
credits.
like
Well,
they
and
came
it
into our
probably
house
would
and
have been
shit on our carpet.
moving.
Jesus.
It's too
There
much.
was some really, Allison's totally right though. There was some really cool shit in this episode and some great acting, but it just did feel like you got a banana split and you're so excited about it, but on top of that banana split is like also a short stack of pancakes and then a waffle.
Yeah.
It's like just too much. They're all good
It's like-
things, but there's too much.
No, it's like you've got a stack of pancakes and someone is like, "Do you want some syrup?" And you say yes, and they start pouring the syrup, and then you say that's enough, and they just keep going, and you say no, that's enough, and then they just keep
With
going.
dead
and
eye
then finally,
contact.
Yes,
you
yes.
have a table covered in maple syrup, and your pancakes are totally inedible. It's like that, and I don't want to diminish the things that this episode does well because I think there's so much more to say. Frankly, we'll probably find a way to talk about this some more since this episode is a little brief, and
Yeah.
I'll talk about the book stuff because as a little teaser, since I didn't want to spoil it for you, Janine, earlier. Ian doesn't come back until much later in the books.
Okay.
They moved
In the
it
books?
forward because Roger in the books. They moved it forward because Roger does go off with that astrolabe, but he goes by himself. So the thing that's so brilliant about this is that Ian does come back with this hurt, with this ache, right? Only he's a little bit better at hiding it, and the reunion is much happier in the book. Like you can tell that he's going through something, but he comes back more upbeat. This makes it so that first of all, Roger's trip through the woods isn't just him having feelings, which is great. He has somebody
Thank
to
you.
talk to. Second,
Yeah.
by drawing out the thing that the things they're both dealing with, it deepens both of them, and it makes it so that neither of them is totally alone in their aloneness. Right? They're isolated together. They're suffering together, and it's incredibly moving and just like I think a really brilliant adaptation choice. So we're gonna talk. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some other things, and. I mean, honestly, like I said, we'll probably talk about this episode some more next week because there's so much going on. But for now, I guess we'll just kind of wrap up. And frankly, let me say one more thing about Mr. Matthew B. Roberts, because I am about to say that I think I want to watch this one again before we talk about it again. And I want to be very clear. that is not because I did not understand it.
Oh my God, I was so mad at him.
It's not
Janine.
because I did not appreciate it, and it's not because I need to be convinced. It's because I want to be able to articulate my thoughts clearly and to appreciate the terrific performances and the incredible direction and the mostly very good writing with these weird tags on the end. Gee, I wonder where those came from. That is what I want to rewatch it for. In the thing where they talk about what happened inside the episode, Janine,
Yeah.
Matthew B. Roberts defensively says, it's a little bit different for us. So before you form any reactions, I think this is one you're going to want to watch it, stop, take a breath, and watch it again so you can really understand what we're trying to do.
What
He
the
says, I want you to watch it again in case you missed something. And I was like, how could we fucking miss it when every single theme you repeat 6 times?
This guy sounds like he doesn't know how to take any sort of chance. Is what it feels like.
I think what it is he
Underestimating the intelligence of his audience.
That's for
exactly
sure. Yeah.
wants to take chances, but as has been clear in a couple of, I think maybe I just shouldn't watch these anymore because they always make me mad.
They do get my blood up. They get my blood up.
Has been clear in a couple of these. There was the one where he said women love romance and men love to be romantic, which is first of all incredibly reductive about gender and relationships and sexuality and all kinds. It's incredibly reductive. And boring, right? Second, what the fuck? Are you saying that women can't write romance? Because do you know who wrote these books? You giant asshole! I don't understand. And this is another, when he said that, I was like, that explains all of the big problems with this episode. It's that you thought you needed to explain to us what you were doing. And maybe everybody isn't going to get it, but Jesus fucking Christ, Twin Peaks was a huge hit. You fuck. People don't need to have shit explained to them. And if people don't get everything, then that's what having conversations and reading criticism and, yes, watching it again is for. You don't need to over-explain it. And you certainly do not need to imply that the only way to appreciate the wonderful thing you just made is to watch it twice. Because people can do whatever the fuck they want. They can have any emotional reaction to your shit that they want. It is okay if they don't like it. It's okay if they love it. It's okay if their interpretation is different than yours. Stop trying to tell the Outlander fandom how they should feel about anything. Stop trying to make sure that we all fit into some tiny emotional box, and stop undercutting one of the best acting ensembles on television by making them say shit that they shouldn't have to say because they're already doing the damn job with their face.
Mic drop.
Woo! Yes!
All right.
Thanks, guys.
That was really good. I think we should.
Fastest scales ever. Are you ready, Julie? And
Oh
then
my
we're gonna get
God,
you out
I
the door.
gotta go.
She has to go.
Really fast. Costumes. On a scale of a black box production of Last of the Mohicans and this incredible costume that Ian was wearing, where does it fit on the scale?
This incredible costume that Ian was wearing.
Ian.
Okay. Sex scale. On a scale from Richard Rankin's droopy, sad face to Jamie hiding behind a tree. Where does it fall?
I wish I could say Jamie hiding behind a tree, but instead I'm going to go with Richard Rankin's sad, droopy face.
And
just no
it's a
sex.
beautiful face, but it was
Yeah.
not
It
a
was very
sexy
sad and
episode.
droopy. It was super droopy.
Okay. And on a scale of lying on the ground staring into the distance because I'm so sad, and sitting up and realizing the dog is whining because somebody is boiling hemlock several trees over, where does this sit on the I have to get up scale?
This sits at the Roku stopped working, so I had to stop. This sits squarely within the realm of technology betrayed me, so I had to stop.
Oh man.
So that's
boy.
it. I'm gonna give it Blade Runner. In other words,
Okay. And who is the answer to this is pretty obvious, but who is your golden pamplemousse?
I mean it's got to be Richard Rankin.
Rolo.
Yeah.
Rollo did look good.
Rolo and Adso. Roly-poly Adso.
They looked real good.
No, you know what?
Richard.
Fucking,
Richard.
it's Richard Rankin. I mean, it
Yeah.
is very clearly Richard Rankin, but everybody was good.
Everybody had
was
good moments. It's true, but
Yeah.
Richard Rankin really was great.
Yeah. And his scenes, I'm so glad that John Bell is back. Julie, I'll do the end stuff with Janine. You take off.
Okay.
Just don't close your browser window.
I will not, and I understand exactly what that means. Signing off, Grandma. Bye.
Bye. So we want to thank everybody. Thank God we can finally talk about Julie behind her back. That fucking bitch.
That worked out.
Just kidding. We want to thank all of our patrons. Well, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. God damn it. Julie leaves and it all falls apart. Janine, how are you doing?
Welcome to Podlander Drunkcast. Now kind of podcast.
We're so disoriented by this episode that we can barely function. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to the show. It's so much fun for us to do, and we hope it's fun for you to listen to. I also, since this is the first new episode we've recorded since it happened, want to thank everybody who came to the wake, which
That
we
was
can
so
now
much
call a
fun.
wake. It was just like surprisingly affirming. Like, it made me feel better about the world, but it was also really funny and silly and wonderful. And thank you for sharing your time and your talents, some of you, and your thoughts and your kind words and all of that stuff. And just like your spirits in general. I don't normally say stuff that's so ooky spooky, but it felt incredibly communal. Janine, was that
very
your
heartwarming.
experience?
Oh God,
Yeah,
it was so heartwarming. It
was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm lost for words.
It was great.
Yeah.
So thank you to everybody who came to our digital wake. We will be doing an in-person wake in the future. So someday when we're all allowed to be out in the world again, please come and join us here in Chicago. We would love... Nope. Social media. You can find us. I'm so tired. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/podlandercast. You can find us on Twitter at podlandercast. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/podlanderdrunkcast. That is where you can join our incredible Slack channel, which is just the most wonderful, happy, fun, again, affirming place for $3 a month. There are other benefit levels, including a level that gets you bonus episodes and stuff. That means you get access to Janine's Corner, the Janine Experience, a little supplemental series that Janine here does by himself. There's a new episode of that going up today.
Yeah.
And I got an email the other day that was like, hey, I've got a Janine's Corner for you. And there was a file that just said on time travel. So I don't know what that is, but I think it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, we're down a hole, that's for sure.
I can't wait. You can find that again at patreon.com/podlanderdrunkcast. We want to thank all of our patrons who make the show possible because it is not cheap to do, but especially the following lovely people: Zena Perez, Stella, Ashlyn Berger, Misty Ojepi, Kayla Reagan, Amanda Newton, Jen Lander Drunklin, Trish McCrary, Dr. J. Thank you so much, Dr. J, for all that you do. Lori McGuire, Katie Kirshner, Beth Black, the other Janine. Spelled differently. Janeen. Thank you, the other Janine, for just delighting me when you signed up. It made me laugh so hard.
That's great.
John Samosky. John, let me know if your last name is being pronounced correctly. Amy Gustafson. Mary the Falling Statue. Still makes me laugh. Tori. Shannon Duffy. Alicia Glenn. Liz Peniston, Philip Nacco, Heather Moore, Amanda Smizaz, Whitney Harrington, Chrissy Shively, Maria Emma Lofald, Samantha Smith, Jenna Polkowski, Rachel Townsend, Steph Peterson, Tara Lucchino, Catherine Marshall Eastman, Chantel Salters, Mary Lumpkin, Crystal Nanavati, Ann Gibson, Ruth McCormick, Kara Marlowe, Flourish Root, Friday Payton, Kathleen Moniz, Hi Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Heather Robbins, and Viv Pickles, a.k.a. Laura, and Kiki... The Wise. Our Slack Den Mom, Kristen, we are thinking of you and sending you all good wishes. We also want to thank everybody who's listening who is working in the healthcare profession. That includes Dr. J, but some other really wonderful people, some in our Slack, and I'm sure a great many outside it. Thank you for taking care of people and helping them stay safe. Thank you to anybody who works in a grocery store or delivers the mail or picks up garbage or delivers food to people or any of the other zillion things that is requiring people to go out in the world. It's really incredible, and thank you for being brave and smart and wonderful, and we hope that every once in a while we make you laugh. Stay safe, wash your hands, take care of each other, be kind, come yell at about stuff on the internet with us, and if you want to hear more in the books chat, check the Patreon. The post will be unlocked so anybody can see it, and I will do an in the books chat later this week. Janine, do you have anything to add?
Have a great week.
Yeah, have a great week. Have a great week. I hope. I don't know. Have a great week. Maybe try watching this episode and just skipping from the beginning of the first silent film thing to the end of it and see what you think.
Oh,
maybe that's how I'll rewatch it.
Maybe that's how I'll watch it. That sounds impactful.
You know what, Janine? Here's a little bonus for those of you who haven't turned off the episode yet. I think you should watch it. And when I do the In the Books thing, you should come on for part of it and talk to me about what you thought.
Okay.
Because I would be very curious. And this is a little insight into the 97 careers that Janine has had. Janine has a lot of insight and experience as a filmmaker as well, so I'd be very interested in your perspective from that arena. But you would probably you'll need to watch the two back to back. Plus, then you get to watch the Happy Birthday sex scene.
God, and you know what? I need that right now, so I'm into it.
Great. That's gonna do it for us. We love you. Bye.
Bye.